Part 41. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Niang. Chapter 401. Chapter 401 Scars. She hugged him tightly, fearing that he would disappear if she let go. Lei patted her thin back gently and said in a gentle voice, "It's okay, Xiaoling, am I here now? You have suffered a lot these days." The tears that she had been holding back fell without warning. He held her face in his hands, crying like a little cat. Her tears fell even harder, and while crying, she choked and said, "You still know how to come to me. Do you know how much I miss you? I'm so worried, so worried. Worried about his injury, worried that he didn't want to." Chu Chen and Sister Maina said everything was fine, but she would always have trouble sleeping and eating if she didn't witness it with her own eyes. Lei wiped her tears bit by bit. "I'm sorry for making you worry." He looked very bad. He was thinner than before, and his whole body was much haggard. His eyes were bloodshot, and his lips were slightly purple. He looks like he has not recovered from a serious illness. But even so, he carefully comforted Xiaoling. Xiaoling also noticed his weakness and recalled that Chu Chen said that he was seriously injured and his spine was damaged. It was lucky that he was not disabled. She looked him up and down hurriedly, and asked with concern, "How is your injury? Are you recovering well? Are you still feeling uncomfortable anywhere?" Speaking, he sat up from the sofa and wanted to check his injuries. Lei raised his hand, seemingly blocking her movement inadvertently. "It doesn't matter to me, my injuries are all healed," he said with a casual smile. "I can run and jump. But you, how are you? Is she okay? When I think about the child in my belly, it feels like a long story." However, the extent of his injury had not yet been confirmed. She was not in the mood to explain the matter to him for the time being. She just avoided the topic and reached out to check his body. Let me see. If she didn't confirm with her own eyes that his body was, how can she rest assured that she has not recovered? Lei was still smiling. He turned over from the original position of lying on his side to lying on his back. One hand accurately grasped her hand that was trying to unbutton his clothes. "I told you it's okay, don't touch it." "No, I want to see it," she insisted, and the more he refused to let her see it, the more suspicious she became. "It's really okay." Xiaoling glared at him unhappily. When did this man become so stingy that he wouldn't even look at her? It's not like she's never seen his body before, so why is it so twisted? "Lei, will you let me see it or not? I know I have a good figure, and I also like your enthusiasm." He put his arms under his head, smiling ambiguously and innocently, "but you can't be so impatient. Xiaoling, this is Feng Kun's office, you want be more reserved, it won't be good if others see you." The more he spoke, the more irrelevant he became. She was very angry, but she couldn't help but blush. He glanced in the direction of the door guiltily, but fortunately, the door was closed. "By the way," she asked him, "how did you get in? This is the Emperor Company, and the guards are very tight. From the park gate to the inside of the office, you have to go through layers of checkpoints and identity verification." How come he was so invisible? Appeared in front of her silently. "Feng Kun." He lazily spat out two words. Then she understood. Although Feng Kun was from the Emperor, he was on her side and had no reason to stop Lei from meeting her. I'm afraid, he also created a lot of conditions for them for this meeting. She was moved. This move would bring risks to Feng Kun and make him severely offend Pei Xian. Taken together, she owed Feng Kun a lot. "What are you thinking about?" Lei asked. Xiaoling's thoughts drifted back, and when she saw that he still refused to take off his clothes, she suddenly became angry. "Go, get down, don't squeeze on the sofa with me in your coat, it's so dirty, wash it off." He didn't know either. "Whatever happened to me on the way here? My clothes were covered in dirt." Lei lowered his head and looked at himself. I really can't blame him. Mr. Li was afraid that he would come back to find Xiaoling before he recovered from his injuries, so he sent many bodyguards to watch him. He had managed to sneak out, jumped out of windows and over walls, and did whatever he could. It would be strange if he wasn't dirty. However, facing the rejection of his beloved woman, he felt aggrieved. "I'm not dirty." She kicked him with her feet. He felt even more aggrieved. "How can I wash it in a big office?" She still kicked him and pointed with her foot in the direction of the bathroom outside the door. Lilei felt very sad when he saw her despising him like this. Like a large pet that was not loved by its owner, he stood up slowly, went to the bathroom, and cleaned himself with the faucet of the sink. Xiaoling waited for him to go out, holding on to the time. Thinking that it was almost done, she got up and walked towards the bathroom. No matter what, she didn't believe Lilei's lie that everything was fine. If he was really fine, why didn't he show her the injuries? She had to confirm it with her own eyes. The office building is quiet and deserted late at night. She held her breath, tiptoed to the door of the men's bathroom, and carefully pushed the door open. He actually locked her from the inside, which made Xiaoling even more convinced that there was something wrong. She rushed to the recording studio next door and patted Feng Kan on the shoulder, who was reading the music score. "Do you know how to open the door of the men's bathroom?" "What happened?" Feng Kan looked at her in surprise. "It's too late to explain," she just said, quickly. "Tell me how to open it." "I have to open the door and go in right away." Seeing that she was anxious, Feng Kan didn't ask any more questions. He directly called the security guard on duty and asked the security guard to unlock the electronic lock of the men's restroom on this floor. The Emperor's office facilities are very high-end. This electronic lock is designed to prevent accidents and can be unlocked through the security system. As soon as Xiaoling was untied, she rushed out like the wind. Humbling open the door, she broke into the men's bathroom. For the first time, her sight accurately captured the muscular body of a man in front of the wide mirror under the flowing light. His upper body was naked and his muscles were well proportioned. Lilei reacted quickly enough. He turned around the moment he heard the movement, from facing away from her to facing her directly. However, Xiaoling still saw the hideous scar on his back. It was a winding, deep and long scar that ran through the entire back, like a person split in half. Near this scar, there is an equally deep and long surgical suture, which is so horrific that one cannot imagine the life and death struggle he suffered. "Xiaoling, you..." Lilei wanted to say something, but she had already rushed up and hugged him. Tears could not stop falling from her eyes. Heartache, guilt, and fear of separation all came to her heart, with mixed feelings and 5 flavors. He stood bare-chested in front of the shining mirror and was held stiffly by her. After a while, he turned around and took her into his arms. "Silly Xiaoling, it's already fine. Why are you crying?" Xiaoling was sobbing harder and buried her head in his chest, unable to lift it up. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 402. Chapter 402. Follow me. Lilei comforted her as gently as possible. "Little Ling, don't cry, don't cry. When you cry, I don't know what to do." "You still said," Xiaoling raised her head with tears in her eyes, "Lilei, you don't want your life. You flew up the cliff to save me in that stormy weather. Do you know how dangerous it is? I told you not to come on. Why don't you listen?" She was trembling as she recalled the incident. "Lilei, you are a madman. Do you know what I am doing? A hero, I would rather die than see you, see you." Her voice was choked and she couldn't speak anymore. What should she do if something happens to him? Lilei hugged her tightly. "I'm not a hero who acts bravely for justice. I went up just because you were the one in danger. You have to be well, Xiaoling." "What should I do if something happens to you?" he said. Her voice was as trembling as her body. "So, Stop talking about death, I can't lose you. Xiaoling cried in his arms until she lost all strength. All her thoughts and fears exploded like lava and she couldn't control herself. Li Lei said, Xiaoling, it's okay, I'm back, let me take you away. His words were lingering, but they were poured down like a basin of ice water. Xiaoling remembered the poisonous oath that Pei Ziyan forced her to make, and little by little, she let go of Li Lei. He looked at her puzzled, Xiaoling. Xiaoling looked at him nervously, have you received the amulet that I, Sister Tamina, gave to you? I got it. Li Lei took out the small sycamore wood amulet from his pocket. The dim blood color was full of mystery under the light. Did you tell me to take it to find the national master? I found it. He said, he knows what you are asking for, but he can't help you. She wanted her brother to break his oath, but it turned out that he couldn't do anything. Xiaoling's face turned pale and she staggered back 2 steps. Xiaoling, what did you ask Master Xia for? Li Lei asked. She opened her mouth, but thousands of words were stuck in her throat, and she couldn't say anything. Not daring to face those hopeful eyes, she turned her back and fled out of the bathroom. Behind her, Li Lei chased after her and grabbed her wrist. Xiaoling, what's wrong with you? He asked, did you ask him to save you from here? It doesn't matter, I'm here now, come with me, and I will take you away. During the period of recuperation, he had heard about her like Sister Maina, he could guess that she stayed with Pei Ziyan to save himself. Li Lei felt sorry for her and hated himself. How could he let his beloved woman suffer so much for him? His injuries were very serious. The doctors brought him back from the gate of hell. It took a lot of time just to recover from his injuries. If it weren't for my good health, I might still be lying in the hospital bed now. He cooperated with the treatment more actively than anyone in the world and wanted to recover as soon as possible. When his condition improved slightly, he used busy domestic affairs as an excuse to strongly request to return to China. Mr. Li couldn't defeat him, so he had to let him back. They sent people to strictly guard him, but they still let him take advantage of the loophole and sneak out to find Xiaoling. He looked into Xiaoling's eyes and said in a gentle voice, let's go. Once we are on my territory, he will no longer be able to hold you hostage. He thought that it was Pei Ziyan's surveillance and guarding that prevented her, a weak woman, from escaping. Xiaoling looked sad and shook her head slowly. Xiaoling, Li Lei's voice suddenly became uncertain, and his heart felt empty. I can't leave. Xiaoling managed to control her emotions. Li Lei, thank you for coming to see me. It's almost dawn, go back quickly, don't be discovered by Pei Ziyan. What's wrong with you? Li Lei asked urgently, why don't you come with me? What kind of trouble have you encountered? Tell me and I will help you solve it. Xiaoling closed her eyes slightly. It's no trouble, she said, Li Lei, I stayed with Pei Ziyan voluntarily. She didn't know how to face him. She only knew that if even her brother couldn't break the oath, she would never leave. She couldn't let that poisonous oath have the slightest chance of being fulfilled. She hardened her heart and shook off his hand. Li Lei pulled her again, this time very hard, and it hurt her. Let go, she said. He pulled her tighter and tighter, pressing her into his arms. Follow me, I'll take you home, he said, more determined than before, half dragging and half holding her, moving towards the elevator. Xiaoling was not as strong as him, and she was dragged to the elevator entrance after only a few steps. Li Lei, let me go, she shouted, struggling in his arms, I won't go, I won't go. He still dragged her in. I am already Pei Ziyan's, she whined and shouted these words. At that moment, even the world was silent. Li Lei's body froze. What did you say? She pushed him away while he was in a daze, leaning her back against the corner, not knowing how to face him. The words have been spoken, and it is difficult to take them back, so let him misunderstand them like this, cut off his thoughts, and from now on, they have nothing to do with each other. My heart hurts like a broken piece and I can't breathe. She looked pale and did not dare to look up at him. Her eyes rested on his naked chest. His wheat-colored skin was so beautiful. It was crisscrossed with many scars, deep and shallow, old and new, just like a warrior who had experienced hundreds of battles. When he is injured, does he feel pain? Her tears are about to flow again. Xiaoling, he forced you, right? Otherwise, how could you sleep with him? As she wished, Li Lei understood the meaning of the sentence he is Pei Xian's person, but stubbornly said, it doesn't matter, I will give up on you for such a thing, come back with me, we will be together. Xiaoling shook her head and tried not to say anything, for fear that she would agree to go with him if she spoke. Her heart was broken into pieces, and she was so sad that Li Lei, he was such a good person. He could even tolerate her losing her virginity to Pei Xian. For a moment, she thought, if things were really that simple. Okay, but the problem they face is 10,000 times more serious than that. Follow me, he suddenly became anxious and raised his voice. She was startled, her body trembled suddenly, and she looked at him in panic. Li Lei realized that he had lost his composure and immediately softened his voice, I'm sorry, Xiaoling, I didn't mean to scare you. I won't leave, she said in a hoarse voice with difficulty. Why? He became excited again, and when he saw her pale and broken expression, he could barely suppress his grief and anger. Xiaoling, it's me you love. Not him. Just now, you were still caring about my injury, how could you turn around in the blink of an eye? Do you want to stay with another man? I don't care if you have slept with him. We have slept with him so many times. Even if you want to stay, you should stay with me. His hand grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look up at him. However, Xiaoling just said, I'm sorry. These 3 words are like a lonely death knell on a cold night. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 403. Chapter 403 The Farthest Distance. Li Lei shook his hands and slowly took her into his arms again. Xiaoling. His voice softened, almost pleading, can you come with me? Please, I can't live without you. He was hoarse. Xiaoling's eyes became moist again, and the tears that had just stopped almost burst out again. However, she still restrained herself and shook her head. Li Lei, I can't leave, I can't. What if she leaves? What if that poisonous oath really comes true? She has lived 2 lives and believes in God's will. How can she risk the person she loves most? It's better to stay far away and watch him live in peace for the rest of his life. I know you left with me to save me. Now that I'm fine and standing in front of you, why don't you come back with me? Li Lei held her shoulders with both hands, desperate and sad. The emperor can afford the liquidated damages, and so can I. Xiaoling, come back, come back. It was the first time Xiaoling heard him speak in such a tone, and her heart was torn and crushed piece by piece. It turned out that she would be so sad when she saw him looking sad. But, how can we agree to him? Li Lei, this is not a matter of money. Xiaoling hardened her heart, determined to cut off his thoughts, and said with difficulty every word, I followed Pei Xian voluntarily, there was no force, we couldn't help it, just went to bed. Nonsense, he growled hoarsely, like a wounded beast. Xiaoling held back the pain and mustered up the courage to look directly into his eyes, it's true, Li Lei. She spoke very slowly, with burning pain tearing at her heart and lungs while breathing, actually, I have always liked him, and I liked him before you. But I don't want to be his kept lover, I want an equal and clean relationship, so I would only run away from him before and be with you. You have always been his substitute. These words conceal many facts. She couldn't tell him that it was true that she once liked Payzian, but now, her love had been worn away over the long years. She was afraid of Payzian and afraid of returning to that gorgeous but cruel cage. She does want an equal and clean love, but that love is given by the man in front of her. She felt so relaxed and at ease around Lillet, as if she was bathing in the warm sunshine. She has fallen in love with him and wants to grow old with him forever, but parting comes too early. There is no chance to say to him, "I love you." Substitute, Lillet's hand let go of hers unconsciously, and he took a few steps back, looking sad and disbelieving. "Xiaoling, it turns out that this is how you always view me." "Yes," she said with difficulty, "the days of unrequited love are too lonely, so I couldn't help but throw myself into your arms. But that day on the cliff, I figured it out, if I die, I will die. I will never have the chance to be with Zi Hung. I vowed to myself at that time that if I could survive, I would go to Zi Hung." She pronounced the word Zi Hung deliberately in a very affectionate tone. In her last life, she had pronounced these two words countless times, with infinite nostalgia and admiration. Now that I read it again, I feel so familiar with it. The soft tone is filled with inextricable love and lingering. If you are not the one who loves each other, you will not be able to read this feeling. Lillet's expression changed again and again. Xiaoling felt that her heart was broken to the point of numbness. She emptied all her true emotions, leaving only a shell. She pretended that she was an actor and recited lines in front of the camera. "So, after I survived, I will be with Zi Hung. As for saving you, it's just a matter of effort. Lillet, please understand that I didn't stay with him just to save you. Don't be so sentimental." She finished this sentence in one breath, not daring to pause for fear that she would be unable to continue. "I don't believe it, I don't believe it," he stared at her with red eyes. "Everything you said is false, right? How could you fall in love with such a devil? Do you know how ruthless and perverted he is? Yes, Ling, you're crazy. He doesn't treat women as human beings at all. Are you willing to be his plaything and abandon him like trash when he gets tired of it? I told you, I checked him, he—" "That's enough," Xiaoling interrupted him fiercely. His words were like knives, piercing her heart every sentence. "Lillet, what do you know? You don't need to tell me what kind of person Zi Hung is. I don't understand at all. That's between me and him. I'm happy to be with him." Her screams were partly fake, and partly because she was really in unbearable pain. The relationship with Payzian was like a wound that kept bleeding and festering. No matter who touched it lightly, it would be unbearable. Lillet laughed angrily. "Yes, Ling, I love you so much that I risked my life to save you, but in the end you told me that you want to stay with another man. Yes, Ling, you are so heartless. You have nothing to do with it." She didn't want the final moment of their breakup to end in such a hurtful quarrel, but his sarcasm was like a sharp knife, making her unable to help but fight back. "Lillet, no matter how perverted Payzian is 1,000 times better than you. No, I love him, you hear me, I love him." Lillet was also hurt and furious. "Yes, Ling, I didn't know you had a masochistic tendency before. If you are good at this, I can satisfy you." There was a storm brewing in his eyes, and his words became more vicious. She turned her head away uncomfortably, and for a moment, she forced herself to raise her head again. "You don't have to worry about it. I am willing to humiliate me again. Lillet, please respect yourself and don't bother me again in the future." After saying that, she suddenly turned around and rushed out of the corridor. As if fleeing, she ran down the stairs step by step, and the echoes magnified infinitely behind her. It was so lively, as if they were laughing loudly at her selfishness and cowardice. I rushed out of the office building all the way. Outdoors, there was the pale golden light of the morning sun, and the rising sun on the horizon was magnificent and brilliant. Beside the green belt, two security guards on duty were joking. Under an old banyan tree, a middle-aged man opened a steaming bun in a plastic bag and handed it to his wife who was cleaning the street. But here, Xiaoling stood alone. No matter what kind of heartbreaking pain she had just experienced, she didn't know anything about the world and only cared about her own happiness. She stumbled and lost her mind. I don't know how long I walked, maybe 2 or 3 steps, maybe 10 steps. Suddenly, I saw a car parked under the lush green shade on the opposite side of the road. It was black and majestic. It was Pei Xian's Rolls-Royce. Xiaoling stopped and did not pass by. She just stared blankly. Pei Xian has several cars like this, and sometimes he will send a driver to pick her up. This car parked here early in the morning. Did Pei Xian ask her to stay up late and finish recording the song and go home early? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 404. Chapter 404, Hug each other while the hands are still available. She didn't know how long the car had been waiting for her. In the morning light, it seemed to be coated with a layer of magical rose gold. She didn't dare to go there. Every time she went back to the villa, it took a lot of courage. She subconsciously touched the bottom of her collarbone, but found nothing. Then she remembered that the amulet given by Lilei was no longer with her, and the platinum ring pendant that witnessed their love had also turned into a puddle of water. The moment I remember these things, it feels like my heart feels empty. Xiaoling slowly backed away and retreated into the shadow of a tree. As if she had lost all her strength, she leaned her back against the tree trunk, squatted down, and huddled her body together. Only then did she have a sense of reality. Just now, she really said so many excessive words to Lilei and broke up with him. They were completely separated and had nothing to do with each other. Even the last little memory was no longer retained, he disappeared from her life. Lilei. Lilei. These two words are turning over and over in my heart. It's really strange. It's obviously been cut in two. Why do I still feel so uncomfortable? Not far away, an unknown singing voice came from no one knew which office, no one knew which singer and which year's work it was, singing intermittently. Please go and see the person you want to see, while the sun is shining and the breeze is quiet. She recalled that when they first met, Lilei always called her little beauty with a smile in his eyes, said he would take care of her, and sent her flowers. During a heavy rain in the mountains, he took good care of her with a fever. Please remember the past while it's still possible, and descent before time devours your memories. Later, when he returned to the city, he called her late at night, rented his house to her, and gave her 2 cents of milk to drink. Please go and see the person you want to see while you are still young and can still walk a long way and express your deep thoughts. He was the one who rescued Pei Xian when she was kidnapped and mute, when she was robbed of her marriage in her hometown in the countryside. It was he who fell from the sky. He hugged her in a wedding dress, and his eyes were full of smiles when he confessed. They also quarreled at that time, and he would speak indiscriminately when he was angry, but he would always apologize to her softly and make peace with her. When he was wronged, he said, "Xiaoling, you don't even feel sorry for me." She looked sad. The singing voice in the morning light is still as faint as a phantom. Go and see the person you want to see, don't care about the distance between the two places, and let you love still be kind and let you cherish each other. Go and see the person you want to see, while you are still alive, while he is still alive. Xiaoling shook her hands and continued to fumble for the amulet, but it was still empty. In this life, she will never meet such a person again. From now on, no one will hold her in his arms and comfort her when she screams in fear, and no one will quarrel with her over trivial matters. It was outrageous. No one would smile lazily at her like that, as if the sky was falling and it wouldn't be worth mentioning. There is no one anymore. There is no one anymore. The tears have dried up and I can't cry anymore. The unknown song is still echoing softly in the air. Go meet the person you want to see, and be crazy about yourself once, just once. But, she couldn't see him. The poisonous oath cannot be solved, so she can only move forward. That cold and majestic Rolls-Royce was her final destination. Even if it is so horrific and full of painful memories. The summer morning breeze blew on her body, but she felt cold all over. She hugged her knees with her hands and buried her head in her knees. After an unknown amount of time, a hand stretched out in front of her. Hear a familiar, haunting voice. Suspecting that she was hallucinating, Xiaoling looked up and saw it was him, with a haggard look on his face, holding the sycamore wood amulet in his palm. Xiaoling stared at him blankly. There was the fragrance of roses in the morning breeze. The laughter and unknown singing of the sweeper gradually faded away. The whole world became the background, dreamy and unreal. Here, he repeated, and when she saw no movement, he bent down and put the amulet at her feet. I know in my heart whether you are living well or not, his hoarse voice whispered in the wind, so, there is no need to lie to me. Xiaoling, wait for me, one day I will take you away. After saying that, he turned around and walked away. Xiaoling couldn't help but look up at him and watched him drift away. The singing on the roadside is intermittent. Go and see the person you want to see, while you still love him, while he still loves you. If I miss you too, I will walk 10 miles, climb 5 mountains, and cross 2 rivers. To hug you. Li Lei's back finally disappeared. Xiaoling huddled under the tree, motionless. The road gradually became lively, and staff coming to work passed by her one after another, looking at her head inquiringly. Yeah, the driver's voice. I don't know when the driver appeared. He bent down and, ignoring the dust and mud on the ground, squatted and knelt in front of Xiaoling. Mr. Pei has been waiting for you for a long time. Please get in the car with me. Xiaoling trembled slightly but did not move. The driver repeated in a gentle voice, please get in the car with me. She still didn't move. You know my husband's temper, the driver said. Miss Ye, please don't embarrass me. Pei Ziyan had many loyal people under his command. She looked up at the driver and thought he was really stupid. What was the benefit of following a master like that? Even if you have a lot of money and a lot of money, you are still walking on thin ice, and if you make a slight mistake, you will be doomed. Change your employer as soon as possible. Don't be like me. When you want to leave, you can't leave. The driver was startled, his face changed slightly, and he did not dare to answer her words. He only urged again and again, Miss Ye, it's time to get in the car. Xiaoling laughed to herself, picked up the amulet at her feet, and held it tightly in her palm. Step by step, as the driver walked forward, under the shadow of the old trees on the roadside, the Rolls-Royce seemed to blend into the shadow, like a mysterious and dangerous beast, dormant and waiting for its prey. The driver opened the back seat door and respectfully helped her get into the car. There was actually someone in the back seat, a tall and handsome man wearing a shirt and vest, who was leaning on the back of the chair with his eyes closed and concentrating. The faint morning light outlined his perfect profile, with a straight nose and thin lips, as cold as a knife or an axe. To the coldness. For a moment, Xiaoling's breathing stopped, and the blood in her body almost flowed backwards, and she almost ran away from the car in a hurry. It took all the strength in her life to restrain herself from moving. Pei Ziyan slowly opened his eyes and looked at her. The look in his eyes seemed different from usual. It made her heart beat with fear, as if all her worries were revealed. She suddenly remembered that this car had been parked here for a long time. Ever since she rushed out of the office building and Li Lei chased her out. Oh my God, how much did Pei Ziyan see? The lyrics of this song are not original. They are a piece of text circulated on the internet. The original source is unknown. If you know anything, please tell me. This should be the only piece of lyrics in this article that is not original. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Sci-fi. Chapter 405. Chapter 405 Showdown. Xiaoling looked out the car window and saw that the road she came from was hidden in the green shade, and she couldn't tell which tree she was curled up in for a long time. She thought with luck, Pei Xian couldn't see clearly, right? Then I felt uneasy again. He had always remained calm and had everything under control. Maybe he already knew it. She looked at him timidly. Pei Xian stretched out his hand, touched her cheek, and then passed over her eyes, nose, lips, along her neck to the back of her head, and pulled her to him. Xiaoling didn't dare to move. His breath is near and his breath can be heard. Xiaoling was startled and struggled instinctively. She was anxious and frightened, and her heart was in a state of confusion. Xiaoling, he breathed unsteadily, you are mine. The voice is hoarse and full of coercion. He is a little abnormal today, as if he has returned to the time when she was imprisoned, cold, violent, and ruthless. The air conditioner in the car was turned on at full speed. She was shivering, and the chill penetrated her bones. Don't, she said tremblingly. Fear came over me like a mountain. Ever since she returned to him, she had not wanted to think about when and on what occasion she would be eaten up by him. However, at this moment, she felt vaguely that she was doomed. Here he is, in his car. He was not going to let her go. Xiaoling looked at him pleadingly, about to cry. She understood now that he must have seen the scene under the shade of the tree just now and saw Li Lei chasing her out to talk to her, otherwise, he would not have been so mad. I was wrong. She said with a sob voice, don't do this. Pei Xian's face was gloomy and unmoved. Xiaoling felt extremely embarrassed. This was the back seat of a Rolls-Royce, and the driver was right in front. As long as she raised her head a little, she could see it clearly in the rearview mirror. She was suspicious that the driver had actually heard their movements long ago. Pei Xian turned her over in the small space. She felt that all the blood in her body was rushing to her head. She was embarrassed, frightened, all kinds of emotions were about to explode. She didn't know what she was thinking, so she stretched out her hand and go open the car door. You're crazy, Pei Xian dragged her back. The car was driving at high speed. Is she looking for death? Xiaoling struggled to cover her body with her hands, dodging his touch, while her other hand still went to open the car door unyieldingly. Pei Xian clamped her hands again, don't forget what you promised me. Don't run away, don't commit suicide. Do you want to break your oath? Her body trembled, and her struggle to open the door softened. Pei Xian tied her hands with the shirt he peeled off her body in a few seconds, then raised her chin sharply, forcing her to look into his eyes. Xiaoling, you are now more capable, in my territory how dare you meet someone you shouldn't see? Am I so good to you that you forget who you are? Don't touch me, she said softly, shrinking. Pei Xian laughed angrily, do you think it's possible? He had already given her a chance, using unprecedented tolerance and patience to take care of her and obey her, hoping that one day she would willingly give her body to him. But, what did you get in exchange? She had secret meetings with other men behind his back. Which one is tolerable or intolerable? She did the first grade of junior high school, so don't blame him for doing the 15th grade. The car drove into their garden villa and stopped. Pei Xian roughly picked her up, carried her directly to the bedroom, and threw her on the luxurious bed. Xiaoling shrank into the bed on her hands and knees, but was easily dragged back by him. Pei Xian, you're crazy, her voice sounded like she was crazy, broken and shaking beyond words. Pei Xian looked at her coldly, condescendingly. His strong body was like a mountain, unshakable, and he smiled calmly, relax. Compared with the man's strong and powerful body, her strength was too weak and she was unable to resist at all. Seeing that he was about to attack her, she was so frightened that she didn't care about anything and screamed, "I'm pregnant." "What?" His movements froze and he looked at her in disbelief. "You said, what?" She took advantage of his daze and pushed him away in embarrassment, curling up to the corner of the bed with her back pressed against the edge of the bed, unable to retreat. "I was pregnant." She took a deep breath, forcing herself to calm down. "It was your child that night." After saying that, she looked at him nervously. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Sci-fi. Chapter 406. Chapter 406 The Best Hospital. Pei Xian's expression froze, and after a moment he asked her, "Really?" She was unsure of his mood and nodded cautiously. Success or failure depends on this one move. If he can get him to recognize this child, then there will be a glimmer of hope. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but say, "I haven't been feeling well these past few days. I dreamed about Guanyin at night. I know that I should be pregnant. That night with you was not a safe period." Her voice was very soft, but his expression gradually softened, and he held her in his arms as if he were caring for a rare treasure. This time, without any aggression or violence, he hugged her for a long, long time without making a sound. Xiaoling felt anxious and asked, "Pei Xian." Only then did he speak, "I'll take you to the hospital for a checkup. If he really has a child, this will be his first child. God knows how long he has been looking forward to this child." Once, when he was engaged, he thought, once the eldest son is born to Wang Jingguan, he and Xiaoling will also have a child and raise it in Wang Jingguan's name. In this way, their child can inherit the glory and wealth of the Pei clan. Now, there is no need for such twists and turns. Xiaoling's child can become his eldest son. Happiness came suddenly, and Pei Xian's voice was filled with unprecedented care and tenderness. "I didn't hurt you just now, right? How do you feel? Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere? Why didn't you tell me earlier that you were pregnant? I can give you the best of care." Xiaoling bit her lip. "It's only been more than a month, I'm not sure." Pei Xian said, "She must be pregnant, that's why she had a bad appetite recently, her mood fluctuated, and she was very abnormal." Having found the answer, Pei Xian's heart was filled with joy. He forgot about the anger he had felt along the way and personally found clothes for Xiaoling to wear. "Let's go to Sining Hospital." "Coming." Xiaoling's heart was ringing with alarm bells, but her face showed a willful look. "I don't." "What?" Pei Xian was puzzled. "I don't go to Sining Hospital," she said. "I hate it there. I have just been discharged from there and have to go in again. Whenever I think of it, I will think of the accident. I fell off the cliff and it was terrible." Her head lowered slightly, covering the strange color in her eyes. Pei Xian was quiet for a moment. In addition to thinking about the horror of falling off the cliff, she would probably also think about the separation of life and death from that man, right? Suddenly, he understood why she didn't even want to tell him immediately that she was pregnant. She still had someone else in her heart, but she was pregnant with his Pei Xian's child. It must be very painful, right? He looked gloomy and no longer insisted, "Then let's change to another hospital." She didn't want to be touched by the scene, and she didn't want to think of her life and death with Li Lei, so why would he want to let her think of it? Xiaoling breathed a sigh of relief. "I'll choose the hospital," she said. Pei Xian's voice was very gentle. "How do you know which hospital is the best? This kind of thing is labor-intensive and can be left to others. You just need to wait calmly and take care of yourself and the baby in your belly." I don't. She imitated the most willful tone in her previous life, with a little bit of coquettishness. She knew that Peizian couldn't do anything like this. I want to choose the hospital myself, this is my baby. Peizian was helpless. He heard that pregnant women have unstable tempers, so he thought it would be better not to stop her. Just let her check it out. If she chooses a good hospital, he will follow her. If he can't choose a good hospital, then he has many ways to make her go to the place of his choice. So, he agreed to her request. However, he said, let the family doctor take a look later to confirm whether she is pregnant. When he suddenly heard that he was going to be a father, Peizian was not as calm as he appeared on the surface. His heart was racing, but he was happy. She was uneasy again. How could she wait until she checked the hospital slowly before going there? You just said she must be pregnant. She pretended to be angry and tried to dispel his idea. I don't want to do so many tests. Even if the family doctor comes to check, you have to check again when you get to the hospital. Just in case. What should I do if it harms the baby? Peizian, is there anyone like you? She had rehearsed this passage in her mind many times earlier. How to refuse unnecessary inspections and how to ensure that the child's secrets were not exposed to the greatest extent, she had to carefully consider each step and every word. The sound of becoming a father made Peizian's rational mind disappear and he was filled with happiness. Xiaoling is right. What if too many examinations harm the baby? This is her and his first baby. If it is a boy, he will be the eldest son of the Pei family. He will inherit the family business in the future, so he must be safe and sound. Okay, I'm not looking for a family doctor, he obeyed her. Xiaoling's worried heart was relieved. So far, everything is going well, I hope it can continue to be like this. She asked Peizian to prepare radiation-proof clothing for pregnant women. She sat in front of the computer and pretended to look up information on major hospitals in the city. Peizian stayed by her side, watching with her and peeling oranges for her to eat. The two of them were in rare peace, with no arguments, chasing or hiding. It was like going back to the time when they were inseparable many years ago. Peizian looked at her flawless profile and thought to himself, it would be great to have a child. Xiaoling checked the information very slowly. After a long time of picking and choosing, she finally picked out the Huaxin Maternal and Infant Specialist Hospital that she had agreed with Feng Kun before. This is it, she said to Peizian. Peizian glanced at the name of the hospital and said, okay, we will go there early tomorrow morning. In fact, it was about his heir, how could he condone her willful behavior? As early as when she was choosing a hospital, he had already privately asked someone to check it out. The Huaxin Maternity and Infant Hospital was also recommended to him by his subordinates. It was said to be the best maternal and infant hospital in the city. Therefore, he had no objection. If she chose another hospital, he would definitely send her to Huaxin. Xiaoling nodded, okay, she breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. Her time-delaying method had worked. At this time, the sun was setting and the hospital had long been closed. No matter how anxious Peizian was, he couldn't see it today and could only wait until tomorrow, Wednesday, the day she made an appointment with Mr. Zhang, to go for a pregnancy test. She was in a cheerful mood, with a smile on her lips. Peizian looked at her smile and was a little distracted. She was so beautiful, really. It's not the stunning appearance, but the peaceful temperament that naturally comes out after pregnancy, which makes people's hearts beat. He will take good care of her and the child. I went to the hospital on Wednesday. Sure enough, Mr. Zhang was the only specialist in the clinic. Mr. Zhang took her medical record card, saw her name, and knew in his heart that this was the person Feng Kun had entrusted to him, so he examined her carefully and calmly. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 407. Chapter 407 Proposal. During a certain inspection, Mr. Zhang asked Pei Ziyan to recuse himself. Pei Ziyan was reluctant, but at the doctor's insistence, he still withdrew. Mr. Zhang closed the door of the clinic and said to Xiaoling, "You are actually 10 weeks pregnant, and all the indicators of the child are normal. However, I heard that you used some drugs in the early stages of pregnancy, which may have harmful effects on the fetus if it causes adverse effects. You should be more careful than other pregnant women." Xiaoling originally heard that all the indicators were normal and breathed a sigh of relief. But after hearing the second half of what she said, she suddenly became nervous. "Doctor, no, is it possible? Will the child have problems in the future?" Mr. Zhang shook his head and said, "We are not sure yet. In a few weeks, when the fetus has grown bigger, you can come and check for malformations. However, even if there is no problem after the screening, we cannot take it lightly. With the current medical level, not all defects can be cured. Check it out during pregnancy." Xiaoling was flustered and anxious. "Nothing will happen to the baby." Seeing her painful look, Mr. Zhang sighed, "In your situation, many doctors will recommend you to have an abortion." Xiaoling raised her head, her eyes full of help. "I want to keep it." Lao Zhang was slightly moved. It could be seen that she really loved the child in her belly, so she would try her best to give birth to it in such a dangerous situation, both internally and externally. "Life is wonderful." Mr. Zhang lowered his head and gave her a food supplement. "We must respect the laws of nature. Although I will not recommend you to have an abortion, if the child shows signs of spontaneous abortion, little girl, I don't recommend you to have a miscarriage. Spontaneous abortion is the survival of the fittest in life. Whether it is Darwin's theory of evolution or God's choice, it will screen out unhealthy little lives. In other people's case, preserving the fetus might only result in a slightly weaker child, but in the case of the girl in front of her, the child that she forcibly preserved might have a major defect." Lao Zhang handed the food supplement prescription to Xiaoling. "Whether it works or not depends on God's will." Xiaoling is in a heavy heart. She has been worried since she became pregnant and has never experienced the joy of being a new mother for even one day. Her hand unconsciously covered her lower abdomen, silently thinking in her heart, "Baby, you must be safe and sound." After the examination, Xiaoling followed Pei Ziyan home. What Pei Ziyan heard from Zhang Lao was a completely different version. He was told that she was only 5 weeks pregnant and everything was normal. Pei Ziyan was very happy. In his more than 30 years of life, he had never experienced such pure joy. This joy from the heart filled his whole heart. He only had her and her baby in his eyes. A family of 3 is a complete world together. "Thank God for sending you back to me." Pei Ziyan hugged her and said softly. Xiaoling rested her head on his shoulder, feeling his joy, but her heart was full of pain and hardship. The birth of this child is destined to be one war after another. She is like a female warrior who is forced to a dead end. She resists in the face of dangers that come one after another. Her life hangs by a thread. She doesn't know where the dawn is and where the victory lies. Where? She thought, this is really retribution. Is it because she lived so smoothly during the many years she was adopted by Pei Ziyan in her previous life? Therefore, the rest of her life was full of twists and turns, and when all the blessings ran out, they became evil. Hurrying to stop these random thoughts. Children are innocent, they are not evil, they are rare treasures given by God. No matter how difficult it is, she will make it safe and healthy at all costs. Pei Ziyan slowly let go of her, looked into her eyes, and said softly, "Xiaoling, marry me. Be my legitimate wife and let our child become the eldest son of the Pei family." "How do you know he is a son?" she refuted in a low voice, suppressing her inner uneasiness, and her mind was racing. "I don't want him to be the eldest son." "Why?" Pei Ziyan asked softly, "isn't it good for the eldest son? He can inherit the family business. The Pei family has a huge family fortune and strict rules. It must be inherited by the most noble eldest son of the family, who is the wife he is marrying. The first son born. How many women fought for this honor, and how many family heads shamelessly promoted their daughters or granddaughters in front of him, but she said, no. This is what Xiaoling is afraid of. She knew very well that the biological father of the baby in her belly was Li Lei. If it was a daughter, that would be fine. If it was a son, how could she let the baby compete for the Pei family's property? This is robbery and theft, so shameless. She framed the baby in Pei Xian's name, but she had no choice but to resort to this trick to save the baby's life when she was desperate, not because she wanted to do anything with him. She said, the eldest son is working too hard. I don't want him to inherit any family property. I just want him to live a safe, healthy, and happy life. Pei Xian smiled, he will be safe and happy, but he will also inherit the family business. He didn't know the gender of the child yet, so he didn't intend to argue with her on this issue. He just said, marry me. Xiaoling lowered her head. She is unwilling to marry him, but if that happens, the child will be born an illegitimate child. When she thought that her baby would have to live with such a reputation for the rest of his life, her heart felt like a knife. But, marry Pei Xian? How could she marry him now? She was obviously worried about another man. Pei Xian said, I will give you a dream wedding beach, chocolate tower, roses. She will get married like a princess in a fairy tale castle, and then live a happy life like a princess under his care. Wedding. Xiaoling thought of something and raised her head. Pei Xian, give me some time. I'm not ready yet, and I've been very affected by pregnancy recently. Let's wait until the child is born, and then consider getting married after the child is born. It's okay, this is not a delaying tactic. She is very confused and really has not thought clearly. If you have to stay with Pei Xian for the rest of your life, do you want to earn a status for your child? Even if they separate after getting married, her children will not be illegitimate. But, Li Lei. Just thinking of that name made her heart hurt like a burning fire. How could she force a smile and marry someone else while missing him bitterly? The only option is to put it off and wait until the baby is born before making any plans. Pei Xian knew that she was not feeling well these days and had a severe pregnancy reaction. Looking at her haggard look, he felt pity for her, thought for a while, and said, it is really hard to hold a wedding. You are pregnant, so you can't be too tired. Let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get the certificate first, and wait until the child is born. We will make up the wedding. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 408. Chapter 408 Wedding Date. She didn't want to go with him to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get the certificate, so she excused herself again, let me think about it. What else is there to think about? Pei Xian's voice was deep. Xiaoling, I just went to the Civil Affairs Bureau. It won't do anything to you. Are you unwilling? Before the child is born, we must obtain a certificate. I will not allow him to become an illegitimate child. It won't take even 1 day to give birth. Xiaoling doesn't understand how fierce the fight is within the Pei family. In the future, when he is old and waning, if the issue of successor is not properly handled, a new round of power struggle will be enough to overturn the entire business structure. If the child in her belly is a boy, he will be the first heir in the family. There must be no flaws in this child's identity, no basis for criticism, not even the title of illegitimate child for a day and a half. Besides, he also wanted to marry her as soon as possible. The night was long and the dream was heavy. She looked at Li Lei with great sadness under the tree at the company headquarters yesterday morning. The heartbroken look in her eyes made Pei Xian panic. It's early summer in June, and the birds are singing and the flowers are fragrant outside the window. Xiaoling knew she couldn't defeat him, so she looked out the window and remained silent for a long time. "Let's set it on Chinese Valentine's Day," she said softly. "As long as the certificate is obtained before the child is born, it will be an auspicious day." She remembered that this year's Chinese Valentine's Day fell at the end of August, so there were still nearly 3 months left. Since she can't resist him, then at least let her choose a longer time. Maybe then, she will give up and accept her fate. Pei Ziyan didn't know what she had in mind, so he just assumed she agreed. He was ecstatic, but on the surface he only showed a gentle smile and hugged her tightly. "Okay, it's up to you. Chinese Valentine's Day is a good day. I wish I could be a winged bird in the sky and join branches on the ground. A bird with wings." She gave a wry smile. The person who could compare with her was far away. After that day, Pei Ziyan treated her twice as well as usual, hiring a special pregnancy consultant, a nutritionist, and 2 nannies. Xiaoling felt dizzy with so many people hanging around in front of her, so she lost her temper, so Pei Ziyan bought another house near the villa where they lived, specifically to accommodate these idle people. The family is as usual. The only servants who live there are the driver and Zhou's mother. When Zhou's mother heard the news about her pregnancy, she beamed. "Miss Ye, your body is not as valuable as before. You have to be more careful when you go in and out. You must keep up with your nutrition. Just tell me what you like to eat and I will make it for you." She imparted a lot of pregnancy knowledge to Xiaoling in a nonchalant manner. Pregnancy is a woman's business. No matter how much Pei Ziyan controls the situation outside, he can't really help much when it comes to details. Thanks to Mother Zhou's advice, she even taught me what position to use when sleeping. Xiaoling listened carefully and thought to herself, no wonder people say that having an elder in the family is like having a treasure. With Zhou's mother here, she felt much more at ease. Zhou's mother encouraged her to go out for a walk frequently and told her to work in moderation. Xiaoling feels that her current job is very moderate, almost too moderate. She spends every day in Feng Kun's office basking in the sun, eating snacks and dazing, and occasionally hums a few pieces of music, just as a reserve for future creation. She didn't know where her current leisurely life came from. Ever since Feng Kun let Li Lei go to the company to meet her last time, Pei Ziyan had deducted a whole year's salary from him and used the withheld money to buy her a special mountain spring water, soft cushions, and fruit snacks that are different every day are provided. That means she still regards Feng Kun as a friend, otherwise, Pei Ziyan would directly kick out the rip-off producer and ruin his reputation. Feng Kun is well aware of such consequences. But he still didn't regret letting Li Lei in. At least, her amulet was back. That small sycamore wood amulet should have been given by Li Lei. She got something as a treasure every day, but she was afraid that Pei Ziyan would see it and not dare to wear it. "Around my neck, I put it in my handbag. I take it out every day in the office and stare at it for a long time. If they can't be together, it's okay to leave them in your thoughts. At least the child will have something from his biological father around him in the future." Feng Kun felt sorry for her and the child. The Pei family pursues a Spartan education, which is very cruel and cold, which is why they educate men like Pei Ziyan, who are extremely powerful but also cruel and violent. It would be terrible if Xiaoling gave birth to a son and grew up like that. However, he couldn't say anything to Xiaoling. The matter has come to this, and it is useless to say more. He can only forgive her, take good care of her, and hope that she and the baby are safe. It would be nice if it was a girl. Feng Kun chatted with her. Girls are beautiful. The afternoon sun shone on Xiaoling lazily. She was playing with the small piece of sycamore wood amulet. When she heard the words, she said softly, "Girls are good." She rubbed her belly with her plain hand and smiled. "Girls are like mothers." Feng Kun felt slightly bitter. This innocent and simple girl grew up in an instant for the sake of the baby in her belly. She no longer cares about being beautiful or not, but is worried about what if the child is born like her father. They say boys are more like their mothers. He smiled kindly and comforted her. Xiaoling felt his kindness, smiled again, lowered her head, put the amulet gently against her belly, and said to herself, "Baby, Daddy is here too, you must be safe." Feng Kun turned away to prevent her from seeing the sadness in his eyes. In the evening, Pei Xian came to take her home as usual. Nowadays, the entire emperor is very used to him accompanying her in the long corridor. The big boss, who has always been unsmiling, with a gentle look, carefully protects the petite girl in his arms like a rare treasure. "Are we going to have a boss lady?" On this day, Girl A at the front desk looked at them secretly and asked Girl B at the front desk. Girl B at the front desk looked at the pair of beauties walking by slowly for a long time, holding her cheeks with her hands. "Wow, have you noticed that our big boss really matches Yexin Ling very well? They are so talented and beautiful, so eye-catching." "What do you mean, a talented man and a beautiful woman?" It was almost time to get off work, and the girls at the front desk were not busy. Girl C also joined the conversation. Let me see, are you talking about the boss and Yexin Ling?" "Oh, how can you call me a talented woman and a beautiful woman? He is clearly rich and handsome. Our hero Pei has everything, including money, looks, and family background. What is Yexin Ling? How about flying up a branch and marrying into a rich family? Wake up and take a look at what happened to Sister Guanju and Lu Mengmeng in the early years." She was talking about actresses who were once very popular. Like Yexin Ling, she was from a grassroots background, with no power or background. Later she fell in love with a child of aristocratic families and was abandoned miserably. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 409. Chapter 409 Memorial Day. That's right. Girl B at the front desk nodded and agreed, "It's a pity." "What a pity," Girl C said. "Yexin Ling is not worthy of our male idol Pei." Although Pei Xian is aloof and unsmiling, and has always been known as an iron-blooded man in the business world, for these little girls at the grassroots level, they were not exposed to his strong and brutal side, but were obsessed with his abilities, status, and demeanor, and regarded him as one of the three male gods in the boss world. "Sigh, I don't know which girl will be lucky enough to marry such a rich, handsome, and considerate husband." Girl at the front desk sighed. "It can't be Yexin Ling anyway," said Girl C at the front desk. "If I want to marry someone, I want to marry Shiyuan from a well-known family. She's a lady, that's what makes her a good match. Do you understand? Who is she?" They spoke at a somewhat loud volume. Xiaoling had always had excellent hearing, so she heard them accidentally. Her steps paused slightly, and an unknown anger arose in her heart. It wasn't like she had to stay by Pei Xian's side. It was clearly Pei Xian who refused to let her go. Why should she be ridiculed and treated like this? She was not a good-tempered person to begin with, but now that she was pregnant with a child, her temper was even more volatile. She wanted to get angry at the little girls at the front desk, but she thought about it again, but restrained herself. The doctor said to stay in a good mood. She took a deep breath, then another deep breath, and swallowed it. Pei Xian on the side also stopped, glanced at her first, and then glanced in the direction of the stage. His expression was so cold that the little girls at the front desk were so frightened that they suddenly stopped talking, as if they had been caught doing something wrong, and they looked at them timidly and at a loss. Pei Xian waited for them all to silence before continuing to walk forward with Xiaoling. "Do they usually say that about you?" After getting in the car, Pei Xian was still unhappy. Xiaoling said calmly, "No way, who dares to do it in front of me? As for whether it is like this behind your back, I can't control it so much." She had long known that they were saying unpleasant things behind their backs, but she could not stop the crowd. Mouth, not to mention that her thoughts were not on this during this period, and the top priority was to take good care of the baby. Pei Xian said nothing more. Xiaoling gets tired easily recently. Although the Rolls-Royce drives very smoothly, she still feels sleepy after sitting for a long time. She closed her eyes unconsciously, and in a daze, she felt a warmth on her body, and a small wool blanket was put on her. Someone pulled her into his arms, and her head was resting on something, which was very comfortable. "Go to sleep," Pei Xian's voice came from above his head, "I'll call you when you get home." When he got home, he didn't wake her up. Instead, he carried her sleeping body into the bedroom and put her on the soft and luxurious bed. She woke up as soon as her body made contact with the duvet. "Pei Xian," she called vaguely. "I'm here." He sat down beside her bed. "Did I wake you up?" She rubbed her eyes and shook her head. "I'm hungry." Pregnant women are the most troublesome, and they get hungry without any warning. Fortunately, it was almost dinner time, and the servants at home had already prepared meals. Pei Xian rang the bell and ordered Zhou Ma to come in with dinner. A very sumptuous dinner was set up on a small table beside her bed. Fresh juice, foie gras, caviar, scallops and abalone fins were all spread out on the table. With his help, Xiaoling sat up from the bed. She was lucky today and didn't suffer from nausea or morning sickness. She took a knife and fork and ate, but Pei Xian didn't eat. He only patiently put tender foie gras and thinly sliced vegetables onto her plate. She had eaten and drank enough, and felt sleepy again. Pei Xian asked her warmly, "Xiaoling, do you still remember what day it is today?" She was very confused. "What day was it?" He said honestly, "I don't know." His eyes dimmed. "Today is your birthday, and it is also the 18th anniversary of our meeting in the past." She always looked forward to this day with her fingers crossed, and pestered him to spend it with her. Now, when the time comes, does she not remember it at all? Xiaoling then remembered, June 3 RD. He nodded. She had long forgotten. "Since my rebirth, I still remember this day last year. I was hiding alone and feeling sad. This year I have been living in embarrassment and chaos. How can I have the spirit to feel this?" She thought back to 18 years ago. Pei Xian took her home from the orphanage. The next year, she pestered him to celebrate the anniversary and decided on her own initiative to make that day her birthday. The sun was so bright at that time, and the fragrance of flowers was intoxicating. She stood in the midst of blooming irises and hooked up with him, and they would spend every year together from now on. He kissed her forehead tenderly and lovingly and said, "Okay." Later, he really kept his promise and held a small banquet every year and prepared gifts. No matter how busy he was, he would still find time to spend this birthday and anniversary with her. It's no wonder that tonight's dinner is so sumptuous. The carefully prepared dishes are served on plates that are as beautiful as works of art. They are spread out. Even on the small and cramped bedside table, there is an unmistakable atmosphere of grandeur. However, things have changed, and Xiaoling is no longer as joyful as she was when celebrating the anniversary. Pei Xian didn't look very happy either. "Sorry, it's too simple, no wonder you can't remember it." He attributed her forgetfulness to his own lack of preparation. In fact, both of them knew very well that it was not the case at all. If a woman changes her heart, she will be more cruel than a man. What birthdays and anniversaries? Long forgotten. Seeing his sad expression made her feel bad. It's really strange. He obviously forced her to stay with him, and she was the one who suffered so much. Why did she feel guilty when she saw Pei Xian sad? She recalled the day the paraglider crashed, when he sent a helicopter to rescue her. When he was hospitalized, he pushed her for a walk every day, and when he heard that she had a child, he took good care of her. Suddenly, I felt that I owed him a lot. My birthday is not today, she told him out of nowhere. I have found my long-lost family. My brother told me that I was born in the winter moon. In the winter months. Brother? Peizian was quiet for a moment and then said, "Is he really your brother? Who is he and what evidence is there?" Xiaoling, don't trust people outside. There are many liars. I know he is my biological brother. Xiaoling smiled, he is an expert in metaphysics. He recognized me by my name in my previous life at a glance. He said that because of some unavoidable reasons, the family allowed me to wander outside. He also told me what my real birth date is. Who is he? Peizian was still worried. A master of metaphysics. Can you recognize your biological sister in this lifetime? He once guessed what kind of family Xiaoling was abandoned by, but he never imagined that the truth would be so unscientific. He had to check that person out. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 410. Chapter 410 Diamond Bracelet. His name is Xiaomoyan, Xiaoling said. Some people call him the Imperial Master. His whereabouts are erratic, and I don't know how to contact him. Your Majesty the National Preceptor? Peizian had very little contact with metaphysics. If it hadn't been for Xiaoling's rebirth, he would not have believed it. But now, I have really thought about the meaning behind these 4 words. Anyone who dares to use these 4 words as an honorific is either a charlatan or a big shot who really has the power to reach heaven and earth. Since that person can see through Xiaoling's previous life at a glance, it is unlikely that he is a charlatan. Could it be that he is really a great man standing in the clouds and overlooking the common people? Peizian pondered for a moment and asked, "Do you want to see him?" Yes, Xiaoling said, "Brother only met me once, and I don't know where he went. I really miss him." Peizian smiled, "I'll help you find him." He didn't know that among all the famous people in the world, there would be a long queue of people looking for Xiaomoyan every year, but he was worried. How could a stranger do it? Be Xiaoling's brother? What is the purpose of the other party approaching Xiaoling? He had to figure it out. Xiaoling didn't think as much as he did, so she was very happy to hear that he was willing to help find her. "Thank you," she said. Although Li Lei told her that his brother could not break the poisonous oath, but if they could meet, he might be able to give her some ideas on how to face this difficult situation. "We're getting married soon. How can we say thank you?" Peizian said warmly. Xiaoling lowered her eyes slightly. His kindness to her cannot be erased with a simple thank you, but she can't repay it. Get married? Not that she did it willingly. The people around her left for a while, and when they came back, they handed something to her. "This is a gift," he said. "Gift?" She looked up in confusion. "What gift?" "Celebrating the 18th anniversary of our acquaintance." He looked at her with extreme gentleness. God bless, he could still celebrate such an anniversary with her. Originally, he had lost her since the 16th year. She also thought of the 16th year. The last year of the previous life. That year, she tried every means but could not stop him from being with Wang Jingguan. In desperation, she packed her bags and planned to leave, but he stopped her at the entrance. He hid her, looked at her condescendingly, and said, "Xiaoling, I have a gift for you. I originally planned to wait until our 16th anniversary, but now it seems that you can't wait any longer." He dragged her to an island. The island has not yet been completed, surrounded by the sea, with a fairyland-like forest, a mirror-level swan lake, a half-built wooden house of Little Red Riding Hood, Snow White's apple tree. In the center, there is a luxurious and perfect villa that is as perfect as a miracle. The whole body is made of pure white marble, huge and solid, like a palace castle in a fairy tale. "This is Fairy Tale Island," he said. "Don't you always like fairy tales? Enjoy it?" He imprisoned her on the island, and the castle was surrounded by Sleeping Beauty's thorn forest. Groups of mastiffs acted as wolves patrolling around, and the scarecrow's cross was moved to the garden. As long as she disobeyed, he would kill her. He will be and severely punished with a long whip. She was trembling with fear. A long time ago, she once jokingly told him that she wanted a fairy tale island to make all her dreams come true. Unexpectedly, he really gave her one, but in such a harsh way, turning all the good things into a huge and ferocious nightmare. In the cage, she had nowhere to escape, both in heaven and on earth. Thinking about the past, she said softly, "I don't like gifts." Beside the bed, Pei-Zion looked at her tenderly. "You will definitely like this, open it and take a look." What was handed to her hand was an extremely exquisite dark blue velvet box, the size of a palm, glowing under the dim light of the bedroom. Mysterious warm glow. She hesitated for a moment before opening it. What catches the eye is a bracelet, made of platinum and diamonds, with brilliant brilliance. She looked at it blankly. 17 pure blue diamonds were set into iris flowers with different postures, and stars surrounded a purple diamond like a moon. The purple diamond is 5 carats in size, magnificent and of excellent color and appearance. Even among diamonds, it is a rare treasure. Her smooth and pure cheeks reflected the brilliance of diamonds, and her eyelashes fluttered lightly. "Do you like it?" Pei-Zion asked. Xiaoling didn't know what to say. 17 identical pure blue diamonds were very rare, and that purple diamond was even rarer in the world. He spent an unknown amount of effort to put together this set. He took the bracelet out of the velvet box and carefully put it on her wrist. Looking at it for a moment, he smiled and said, "It matches you very well." Xiaoling lowered her head and looked at the shimmering color floating brightly and darkly on her wrist. She didn't know which famous craftsman had made it. Every detail was perfect, and it was a classic handed down from generation to generation. "Do you like it?" he asked again. She thought for a while and then nodded. "In fact, I can't say how much she likes it. After experiencing so many things, she is no longer the little girl who would be overjoyed for expensive gifts. She was just glad that he gave her a diamond bracelet and not that island, fairy tale island, her eternal nightmare." Pei-Zion stood next to her gently and looked at the dazzling treasures with her, 18 diamonds, commemorating the 18th anniversary of our meeting. "Thank God for sending you back to me." But she did not thank God. God is so cruel. The figure of another man suddenly appeared in my mind, Lilei. I wonder what he is doing now. Will he miss her as much as she misses him? No. It's better not to miss it. Since we are destined not to be together, it is better to forget each other in the world, so as not to increase the sadness. Her expression darkened. Outside the bedroom, someone knocked on the door. "Come in," Pei-Zion said. It was Jo Ma who came in, her eyebrows lowered and her eyes lowered. "Sir, Miss Xia Yu is here." "Xia Yu? What is she doing here at this time?" Xiaoling looked at the time. It was past 8 o'clock at night. The stars and moon outside the window had already risen, and insects were chirping. Pei-Zion asked directly, "Is there something wrong with her?" Jo Ma still lowered her eyebrows and said, "Miss Xia Yu said, today is." She suddenly glanced at Xiaoling, who was lazily postured on the bed, with some embarrassment. "It doesn't matter, just say it," Pei-Zion ordered. He understood Joe's mother's concerns. It might not be good for him to talk about his ex-girlfriend's sister in front of his pregnant woman. But Joe's mother didn't know that the Xiaoling in front of her was actually Xiaoling back then, and it didn't matter what she heard. After receiving the order, Jo Ma took a careful look at Xiaoling on the bed before saying, "Miss Xia Yu said that today is her and her late sister's birthday, and it is also the 18th anniversary of your acquaintance with them, sir. She wants to spend time with you." End of this chapter.